Hello and welcome. You're watching Beyond World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh and these are the headlines. Now, Iran demands unfreezing its assets and ceasefire in Lebanon must be fulfilled before the peace talks can proceed, throwing some last-minute doubts about the possibility of whether the negotiations can even happen or not on Saturday.
And I think it's going to be positive. We'll, of course, see, as the President of the United States said, if the Iranians are willing to negotiate in good faith, we're certainly willing to extend the open hand. If they're going to try to play us, then they're going to find that the negotiating team is not that receptive.
Now, the Vice President J.D. Vance warns Iran against trying to play Washington as he sets off for talks in Islamabad that are aimed at transforming a fragile ceasefire into some kind of a lasting peace deal. The Americans, remember, in the last 9 months have walked out of 2 negotiations and have resorted to bombing Iran. Israel bombs the city of Nabatea in southern Lebanon. Huge plumes of grey smoke were seen rising from the buildings. This as Israel and Hezbollah continue to trade some fire in the 3rd day of the Iran truce. And reports say the first in-person meeting in the expected negotiations between Israel and Lebanon will take place on Tuesday at the U.S. State Department. And Benjamin Netanyahu has asked to again postpone giving his testimony in his long-running corruption trial that was set to resume next week, citing the ongoing security situation in the region. And the IRIB has said that only 4 ships have passed through the Strait of Hormuz in the last 24 hours. This includes 2 Iranian ships, 1 Iranian oil tanker and 1 Russian oil tanker. And thousands of Houthi supporters rally in the Yemeni capital Sana'a to celebrate what they call the Iran alliance victory in the war. And a massive fire breaks out at the Darul Uloom in Hyderpura in Srinagar. Fire service personnel, locals and the police have been deployed to the site.
To me, if my boys are fully vaccinated and they're at daycare, they're a lot less likely to spread disease to other babies. I would never forgive myself if I knew that my son had gotten another baby very sick and it was something I could have prevented.
In South Carolina, amid the largest measles outbreak the U.S. has seen in more than 35 years, parents have had to figure out how to protect their kids the best they can. Lower vaccination rates mean they can't depend on herd immunity, which requires at least 95% of people in a community to be immunized. Among the most vulnerable are babies too young to be vaccinated.
It threw a lot of panic into parents, and they started withdrawing their students or not enrolling their students. We got some posters mailed to us and told us to hang these posters up and call us if you have any questions, but there's not been a lot of guidance.
While this outbreak has slowed down, with total reported cases near 1,000, measles continues to spread in other states. And doctors worry that this virus, one of the most contagious known to humanity, could eventually rip through the U.S. like it did a century ago.
To be honest, I never thought I would ever live in an area with a measles outbreak or having to be dealing with this as a parent or as a pediatrician. But unfortunately, it only takes a small percent to not vaccinate for things to really spread like wildfire. It is a viral infection that typically causes fever and cough and rash, but has an increased risk of complications. So the one that is really scary is encephalitis or inflammation of the brain.
Usually, children receive the combination measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine just after their first birthday, and then a booster shot around 4 to 6 years old. But during the outbreak, some local doctors began offering an approved infant dose to babies as young as 6 months.
My wife called me when I was at work one day and told me, she said that we were going to have the measles vaccine early. And I was like, so we're able to do that? And she said yes, as a precautionary thing. And now since she's got the second one, it actually makes me feel a lot better. You know, it's not about you at that point. It's about the child. It's about what they need. But, you know, I can't discourage anybody that has their own outlook on it.
Doctors and experts warn that the rise of anti-science sentiment and the idea of health freedom threaten to make things worse.
We are a canary in a coal mine in South Carolina, and there's no question that it will spread to the rest of the country as vaccine rates start to fall and religious exemptions become more common. Measles virus doesn't recognize any state borders. It doesn't recognize any national borders. It will go where it can find a foothold.
You've got to do the best you can for your family with the information you have. And I'd like to truly believe that every other parent in my community is trying to do the best for their kids. As far as I'm concerned, I'm part of a community, and so being part of that community is taking care of my kids, but also showing my kids how to take care of the community as well, as best as I can.
A few more details are coming through now, as you said. One man appears to have died. They're actually on the island of La Gomera. It's just to the west of Tenerife. It's slightly smaller, one of the smaller Canary Islands, actually. And according to local reports, they were travelling on a tour bus on their way to get a ferry to get to that larger island of Tenerife. And it appears from a photo released by emergency services that tour bus has left the road near a mountain tunnel and then rolled down a ravine. The exact circumstances of how that happened, we do not yet know, but we do know there were 28 people on board, including 3 children and the driver. We know one person has died. We know one person has been sent to Tenerife for treatment, and 26 are receiving treatment at local hospitals at the moment. 3 people have been very seriously injured. Now, it's understood, except for the driver, that they were all British tourists staying in an area called Playa de Santiago. They were on their way to the capital of La Gomera, the main port of San Sebastian de La Gomera. Now, the Canary Islands are obviously hugely popular with British tourists. Boat trips and tours between the islands are hugely common as well, and generally the safety record is very, very good. But the Canary Islands, they are mountainous islands, mountainous volcanic islands. The roads on many of them are steep, they are winding, and this incident just highlights the danger of such conditions. As you mentioned, one person known to have died, 26 more injured, 3 very seriously.
This morning, a report showing an increase in ICE arrests since January of last year. It shows more than 4,300 people arrested by ICE here in Michigan. So this study was done by researchers at UC Berkeley who founded the Deportation Data Project. 13 on your side's Aaron Sullivan joining us live with more. And Aaron, I know you looked at this data, so what have you found out?
Tanner, well, a group of researchers behind the Deportation Data Project successfully sued DHS, granting them access to internal arrest and detention data. Now, you might see a lot of major news outlets pulling this data from reports, so we wanted to take a look at this ourselves. Now, it's titled 1 Year of Immigration Enforcement Under the Second Trump Administration, and the report tracks data from the middle of the Biden administration to the start of this month, showing a sharp uptick in immigration arrests since Trump took office.
The report also found that interior deportations increased by 5 times. Researchers suggest that this is due to the border being closed, creating more bed spaces in detention centers for those arrested in the United States. Now, before 2025, the majority of deportations were people who were arrested on criminal charges. They would be transferred from jails and prisons, but that's not the case anymore. Street arrests have become more common during the Trump administration for immigration arrests. The report also found there's been an uptick in arrests during routine immigration check-in appointments and outside of courtrooms. Researchers are calling this change a new phenomenon. Before the Trump administration, those arrested by ICE were released from detention while they fought their immigration cases. But that's not the case anymore either. Many detainees are choosing deportation because they no longer have the option to be released while they await their court cases. The report also compared data from 6 months before the inauguration to January 2026. It found arrest of people without convictions rose nearly 9 times. Arrest of those with nonviolent convictions doubled, and arrest of individuals with violent crime convictions increased by more than a third.
Now, after the murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, the report says that there was a decline in enforcement. But researchers suggest that with the One Big Beautiful Bill, that will allow ICE to continue to hire more officers and expand detention capacity. DHS has told other news outlets that this data is cherry-picked and not accurate since federal officers haven't reviewed these reports. In studio, I'm Erin Sullivan, 13 on your side.
Mumbai's busiest fishing harbour is now quiet. At the dock, the heart of the city's fishing trade, boats are not moving, nets remain untouched, livelihoods are on hold in that part. The reason, thousands of kilometers away, the Iran conflict, which has triggered a sharp spike in global fuel prices. Our principal correspondent, Disha Yadav, getting us the latest from on the ground.
This is Sassoon Dock in South Mumbai, which is usually buzzing with life. Fishing boats line up before dawn, engines roar and markets come alive with the day's catch. But nowadays, there's an unusual stillness. Boats now sit idle, clustered together under the sun. For many fishermen, stepping out to sea has simply become too expensive. Diesel prices have surged sharply, crossing $1.2 per litre, making fishing trips financially unviable. For many, this means no work and no income. Fishing operates on tight margins. And with fuel costs soaring, even cooperatives that provide subsidized diesel, ice and gear are struggling to keep up. The result? Fewer boats heading out and smaller batches coming in.
We need 5,000 liters of diesel, which has now become unaffordable. We end up spending 5 to 6 lakh rupees and stay in the sea for 15 to 20 days, but get up only few fishes, leading to further loss. The impact of war has created a horrible situation for us, that we might end up being homeless. Our request to the government is to provide us with subsidy.
The ripple effect is already visible. With fewer boats at sea, fish supply is shrinking, and that could soon push prices higher in local markets. Entire ecosystems from vendors to transport workers are beginning to feel the strain.
कारण आमचा पूर्णपणे धंदा डिझेलवरच आहे. जर डिझेलचा रेट कमी असेल,
our entire business runs purely on diesel, and we are not even getting any profit from the fishes.
कारण डिझेल महागलं आणि मच्छीला भाव नाही वाढले.
If the situation persists for a long time, we will have no other option but to anchor boats at our house. We have to pay laborers, but we are not even getting marginal profit which is needed for survival.
डिझेलचा एवढा भाव वाढला तर आमच्या बोटे अक्षरशः घरी ठेवायला लागतील आम्हाला.
The crisis has its roots in the Iran war. Tensions in West Asia have led to disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, a key global oil route, triggering one of the biggest fuel supply shocks in recent history. This has sent diesel and crude oil prices soaring worldwide.
From global conflict to local crisis, the impact is clearly visible here on Mumbai shores. These boats are likely to remain anchored if the fuel prices do not stabilize, and thousands of livelihoods will be left adrift. If the fuel prices continue to stay higher, then this will not only hit the fishermen, but it will also end up hitting the fish supplies, market prices, and eventually consumers across Mumbai. With video journalist Siddesh, this is Disha reporting here for Beyond from Mumbai.
وفي غيرها في مئات الساحات كنتم ولا زلتم ملايين لكل من يخشى أمريكا وإسرائيل. تعلموا من بأس اليمن وتعلموا من شموخ اليمن وتعلموا من إيمان اليمن. هذا قرن الشيطان، بل هذا الشيطان الأكبر ندوسه. في هذه الميادين وفي غيرها في مئات الساحات كنتم ولا زلتم ملايين لكل من يخشى أمريكا وإسرائيل. تعلموا من بأس اليمن وتعلموا من شموخ اليمن وتعلموا من إيمان اليمن. هذا قرن الشيطان، بل هذا الشيطان الأكبر ندوسه.
There may be a shaky ceasefire between the US and Iran at the moment, but the consequences of the US-Israel war on Iran are still being felt around the world. The surge in fuel prices caused by the US-Israel aggression leading to nationwide protests in Ireland. Farmers took to the streets on their tractors for the fourth day in a row. They blocked key roads across the country, including a major highway linked to the capital. The jam brought traffic to a crawl. For days, fuel has been limited in Ireland. Some areas have put a 25-litre cap for customers, and this has caused long queues to form outside petrol pumps and worsened the jams. Farmers have been protesting because they feel the rise of fuel costs puts their livelihoods at risk.
So with the price we're paying for fuel, I'm probably 2 months away from my business folding up. So really no choice. And we're not asking for a lot. We're looking for the government to reduce some of the tax and carbon tax on the fuel, just to allow business to keep going. You know, it's not a lot to ask for, really.
After 4 days of nationwide protests, the Irish government is holding talks with agricultural and freight representatives. This comes after the government tried taking a hardline approach on Thursday with Ireland's Justice Minister, saying that protesters would face consequences and that the army could be called in to break up blockades. But the protesters have remained on the streets, saying that without more government support and price cuts, they will not be able to weather the storm.
We are going to stay it out here. We have to. We might as well sit here. We can't. We're burning diesel there. We're losing money at the minute, so we might as well be here. They have to come and talk to us.
In the back, go ahead.
The President has said Cuba is next. What's the message to the American people regarding Cuba, and what can Cubans expect in relation to this statement?
Well, look,
I think when President Trump said that, and he later clarified after making that statement, that he meant the Cuban regime is bound to fall. The country is very weak. They're in a very weak position economically, obviously, financially. The Cuban people are fed up with their government, as they should be. And these talks and discussions continue to happen at the highest level of our government. I don't have any updates or announcements for you with respect to Cuba policy today.
Are you afraid for yourself, for your family, or are you prepared to, as you say, make the ultimate sacrifice if you are attacked?
I have no fear. I am willing to give my life for the revolution. Of course, I wouldn't like that to be the attitude of the U.S. government. I think the American people is a sensitive people, and they wouldn't allow, or they wouldn't see with good eyes that their government, the country, would invade a very small island that does not pose any concern in terms of national security for the United States.
Now, of course, that after the Trump administration ousted Venezuela's leader and killed the supreme leader in Iran. It is important to note President Trump has largely said Cuba will fall on its own, he believes. He has not really leaned into the idea of military intervention. I can say, though, having visited Cuba, this is a communist country that's been struggling economically for decades, in part because of its governmental structure. But the U.S. blockade, this oil blockade, has exacerbated the poverty, the desperation we saw, including bread lines and trash piled high because there's no fuel for garbage trucks due to the blockade. Laura and Willie.
So, Kristen, both the United States and Cuba have said they're open to negotiations, but what's on the table in those conversations?
Yeah, great question, Willie. President Diaz-Canel confirmed to me that there were talks underway between the U.S. and Cuba, but it's not clear exactly what each side is asking for. Broadly speaking, we know the United States wants Cuba to meet certain demands in order to normalize relations, including releasing political prisoners, holding multi-party elections, and establishing a free press. But President Diaz-Canel would not commit to making any of those changes in our conversation, which raises real questions about whether a deal can be reached. Now, look, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has also called for a change in leadership. And on that point, President Diaz-Canel was defiant again, saying he will never step down unless the people of Cuba want him to. Willie and Laura.
It's an important conversation. It's a great get. Kristen, thank you. And of course, she will have a lot.
The country will collapse soon.
No, not at all. We are where's like collapse, give up, surrender, betray. It's not in the dictionary of the Cuban people. So we are doing a lot of things to avoid the collapse, but the humanitarian impact is there. It's tremendous, not only in the health sector, it is also in the food production. You need oil to produce food. If you don't produce food today because you don't have oil, tomorrow you will not have something to eat, or at least you will have less to eat.
As you say, this is political for the United States.
No doubt.
They've been very clear about that. The statements from the president, from Rubio, have basically been, their argument, right, is you can bring this all to an end by coming to the table with us. And they want, it seems like, two sets of changes. One is a political set of changes. They want to make adjustments to Cuba's leadership. They have said, at least at times, they speak about democratizing the country. People have even floated Rubio in as a potential sort of leader for a period of time, of course. And then there is the other piece, which is economics, business interests in Cuba. There are conversations happening. What can you tell us about what is on the table right now?
I can tell you what we have been saying for many, many years. Cuba is ready to talk with the U.S. about everything except internal affairs. We are ready to have a dialogue with the U.S. based on equal footing, respect of sovereignty, and respect of independence. We are not asking the U.S. government to change their political system, their economic system. No independent or sovereign country will allow a third country to come and tell them you have to change this or that in terms of internal affairs. So we are ready to talk about everything. Our president announced a few weeks ago that we are in a very beginning process of this dialogue of bilateral conversation. We are ready to sit with the U.S., and we already sit with the U.S., to try to define, to establish the difference. Okay, we have this difference. Okay, now that we know which are our differences, now we are going to work together in terms to resolve those differences.
Venezuela necesita hoy instituciones creíbles para que vengan a invertir esos 500.000 millones de lo que habla el presidente Donald Trump. Si no tenemos Estado de Derecho, aquí no va a entrar dinero porque nadie va a arriesgar su plata en un país que lo pueden expropiar todo lo que se invierta. Convoquen elecciones y váyanse. Eso es lo que quiere hoy el trabajador venezolano.
Ni ha sido ni será fácil. Pero los únicos que podemos sacar adelante a Venezuela es la revolución bolivariana. Los únicos que garantizamos la paz en este país es la revolución bolivariana.
Explosions, fires, and a shockwave that didn't just hit one country but the entire global oil market. Well, this is the new flashpoint in the Middle East, and it is escalating fast. Ladies and gentlemen, in a dramatic and deeply alarming development, Saudi Arabia has confirmed that multiple strikes hit some of the most critical energy sites, and that too right in the heart of its oil structure. From Riyadh to the eastern province, and all the way to strategic port city of Yanbu, the impact was widespread, coordinated, and impossible to ignore. So let's break down what really happened here. According to initial reports, the strikes targeted major refining and processing facilities, including the high-profile Sator refinery and the massive Ras Tanura refinery, that is one of the largest oil processing hubs in the world, by the way. These are not just industrial sites, these are the backbone of Saudi Arabia's energy power. Result, operation halted, fires erupted, and production dropped. Estimates suggest that around 600,000 barrels per day of oil output has been disrupted, roughly 10% of the kingdom's processing capability here. It's not a minor hit, it cannot be. This is a direct blow to the global supply. In fact, casualties have been confirmed. At least one person killed, several others injured, and emergency teams rushing to contain the fire, and that too at multiple locations. Images and local reports describe thick black smoke rising into the sky, flames tearing through processing units, and panic among workers as critical infrastructure came under the attack. Now the bigger question, who is behind this? Well, early signals, they point towards involvement linked to Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, raising serious concern about Iran's role in this escalation, while full confirmation that is still evolving. But the geopolitical message that is already loud, that's already clear. Because this isn't just about Saudi Arabia, right? This is about global energy security. Well, the immediate impact, it was felt within hours. Oil market reacted very, very sharply. Brent crude prices jumped upwards as traders and governments suddenly faced a new reality. Less supply, more risk, rising uncertainty. When a major producer like Saudi Arabia faces disruption, the ripple effect, they are felt from petrol pumps in India to industries in Europe to markets in the United States. And wait, here's another layer of the danger here. Many of these facilities, they are closely tied to export routes that passes through the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow but very important corridor through which a massive share of world's oil passes every single day. If tensions escalate further, if this corridor, it is threatened, the global supply chain, it could face serious disruption here. You know what makes this moment even more fragile? It's the timing here. This attack comes when ceasefire efforts in the region, they are already weakening. Diplomatic channels are under strain, trust is low, and military activities rising, that too on multiple fronts, not just one area. So, which basically means the strike, it could be the tipping point. Because when energy infrastructure becomes a target, well, it is no longer just a regional conflict. It becomes a global crisis. And now the entire world is watching closely. Will there be retaliation? Will tension spiral into wider war? Or can diplomacy still pull things back from the edge? Well, one thing is definitely certain here. When oil stops flowing, the world starts shaking.
This is Dabu7. A lot of people asking questions about this cryptic post that Trump put out talking about the world's most powerful reset. Signed, DJT. People saying, what is he talking about? Is this chatter on Russia and Ukraine? Is it purely China? America first, 4D chess, anything else? They're saying, well, I think it's rather obvious if you've been paying attention what this means. He's only said it on record, on camera, he said, look, I'm sent here to reset this whole thing. So I take that as not just the United States economically, but it's going to affect the entire globe. And he's kind of pointing in that direction. The whole thing with the Straits of Hormuz has sparked this. And even if they come out and they say he's talking about something else, like, what are you talking about that makes sense to what's going on out here? Well, it's this. Everything going up, and with the Mar-a-Lago Accord coming up here just next month, when the whole thing gets rolled out, people are going to see what he means through and through. This isn't a one-day thing, okay? But it's happening. It's happening in real time, every day. You can just watch the markets and you can see the prices of everything around the world rising. Inflation rising. So, to fix this, there's going to have to be an official event, in my opinion, a true reset. But what this might entail is telling everybody that we forgive you of your debt if you come onto the new system. That would walk a ton of people right into the trap, onto a new system, the B system, of course. Will many care? Nah. Many are going to go along with the flow, but a lot of you out there, you've had warning after warning about this moment, about when this all goes down, and to me, they really can't put the whole thing into effect until they hold your money hostage. Which means any moment now, any time, there's going to be some kind of hack or cyber attack on the banks holding your money hostage. They're going to have the quick answer, which is going to be a digital currency. Just download the app and you can spend it at the gas station, at any store. It's already set up. So give me a break. All they need is the event. It's plain to see, clear to see. And it's here at any time. I mean, this man's out here openly bragging about the world's most powerful reset, and they haven't even done it yet. They haven't even done it yet. It seems like any moment. I don't know what else to say about it. When he's bragging about it and it still hasn't happened, well, you could say it's kind of in motion, but not until the money resets. And all the economies reset. They want everyone onto the new digital biometric slave system. If you can't tell. Anyway, join me for the live stream. Talking about this in greater detail. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. And again, I don't care if they come out and they give some excuse of what he was talking about. And try to say this or that. I don't care. They telegraph. They're cryptic. And that's how they roll.